All right, I thought this could be a fun idea for a video. So, when compiling my list, doing my research for the upcoming draft, I make sure I evaluate a lot of quarterbacks, not just the, numbers, top six guys, because I want to see if there's any hidden gems or anything like that. And I figured let's just give a recap of some of the guys that I evaluated. I'm going to kind of do a top 7 list. I haven't evaluated everybody, so, there might be someone who is better than my 7th pick that just I haven't evaluated. But, evaluated a number of the players who aren't expected to go in round 1. These are my picks for top 7 quarterbacks that will not go in the first round, probably. Again, just to reiterate, the 6 quarterbacks that I am not talking about here are obviously, Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, Michael Penix, J.J. McCarthy, Drake May, and Caleb Williams. But yeah, let's get into the list, starting off with number 7. I'm going to Sam Hartman out of Notre Dame, who, to be honest, there's concerns with Sam Hartman. And, to be honest, I'm not sure if there are if this is top 7 and there's 6 other guys, I'm not sure if there's 13 players who I would say should be drafted. But I do think there is some interesting things with his ability to, he can run an offense relatively well, and he is mobile enough that I think there's some intrigue with him. Bit of an older prospect, just so you know what you see on the bottom of the screen. It's the player's name, college, age, and then height and weight. But yeah, the age is a bit up there. I still have real concerns about his arm strength. I'm not sure if his arm can work at the NFL level. Granted, I look at his profile. It's very similar to how I put Brock Purdy's profile out there back in the day. Now, granted, I think I probably didn't do a great job at evaluating Purdy back in the day. I didn't really pay a ton of attention to Purdy back when I evaluated him, but still, it's kind of interesting enough. But yeah, nothing too crazy of Hartman. He's number 7 on the list. Number 6 is Tala Talao, who, again, probably best known for being Tua's brother. And listen, I do think there is some benefit in that. Like the fact that you have someone who has a family member who has been through it in the NFL, and say what you want about Tua, has been successful at the NFL level. We can debate how successful, but he has been successful at the NFL level. Tala is a different person, though, so just, he might not necessarily work just because Tua did. Tala is 24, another older prospect, and he's not as big as Tua, who's already not a big player. Tala is just, 5'11", 208 pounds, so that's not ideal. And unlike his brother, he is definitely reckless with the football at times. So that's kind of the other issue, is you're already kind of smaller. I think his arm strength is okay. I think his arm strength would work. If the arm strength was the only issue, I'd say don't worry about it too much. Not that it wouldn't be an issue, but I think you could still make it work. But I don't think he quite has the mental capacity. I don't think he's quite as smart on the field as Tua is. And so when you kind of are also factoring that in, it does take Tala his entire body to get the ball down the field. I just don't know if there's enough there with him, but the upside is still there. There are moments when he does look legitimately good, and I wouldn't hate maybe as an undrafted free agent bringing him in, seeing what he can do in preseason. Number 5 is Austin Reed out of Western Kentucky. And, doing research for this, I like to watch film, but I also like to see what other people are saying about some of these players. Wasn't a lot of other information with Austin Reed. Kind of had to search pretty far to find what other people had to say, and mostly this is just my own evaluation. So maybe I'm completely different than the pack, but I'm not sure what pack there is. I thought his footwork was terrible, and I thought that he throws very awkwardly. I think that does a lot of throwing off balance, and he doesn't have a lot of arm strength either. The physical tools, you just wonder. I mean, maybe you can fix some of that stuff. That's the upside. Maybe you can fix some of that stuff. The upside is a real question, though. I don't know if he's going to be anything more than a backup. Now, runs the offense well, gets rid of the football quickly. That's part of that is scheme, but that's still good information. So again, if you're looking for maybe a Brock Purdy type, there is potential for that. But again, Brock Purdy has turned into a lot better of a player than we thought he was. But, if you're looking for a guy who maybe an Aiden O'Connell type could be a better comparison, although there's different players, I could see that with Reed. Number 4 is Jordan Travis, who I'm a bit lower on than some other people are. I do think he's making a lot of top 10 lists, and makes my top 10 list. This is technically number 10 on my list. I think that there's some parts of his game that are maybe a bit overblown. Specifically, a lot of people talk about his athleticism. I think it's good. I don't know if it's great, I guess I would say, which it might have to be because, so listen, there's really positive traits in Jordan Travis's game. He is, for the most part, accurate. He can make throws off balance. I think his throwing motion is fundamentally flawed, and it's not really a fixable thing. The comparison I would make is, Jordan Travis went to Florida State. I'll compare him to a Florida quarterback, Kyle Trask, who his throw motion very long, winded up, and so you pretty much need a lot of time to throw. And when you have to shorten it, then the accuracy gets all out of whack. Then the arm strength gets all out of whack. I just think that's, I don't know if you can overcome something like that unless you have a lot of other positives. Like Cam Newton had that, but he was Cam Newton, right? I don't think Jordan Travis is that. Also, Travis takes too many sacks for me. But there's positive traits. Like I said, he can run an offense for sure. And so he is an interesting prospect, but I'm not super high on him. Number 3, Michael Pratt is the first guy who I'm like, yeah, he feels like an NFL player. He feels like a backup for a while, I think. Not to say none of these other guys will be. I think I put them on the list for a reason. I think there's potential for that. Michael Pratt's the first guy where I'm like, I would be surprised if he's not an NFL backup, and I could see him being, someone you draft at this point. I wouldn't think that is crazy at all. I still don't think there's issues with him. He's not a ton of arm talent. He's not a big armed guy, and I think that is going to limit what he can do. That being said, he's a young player at just 22, but he did run the offense very well. I do think he's a smart player. He does seem to have good fundamentals with his footwork and everything. So that's kind of the positive traits with someone like Michael Pratt. He played through an injury last year, so I'm not fully going to blame him for some of the bad games that there were last year. I think there could be maybe some higher upside, but you're still probably not looking at like a franchise quarterback upside or even like a top 32 quarterback upside. My other thing in my notes is he'll run the ball. He runs like he's not afraid of contact, and maybe he should be, because some of these moves, not sure if they're going to work out in the NFL. But he's an interesting enough prospect. Number 2 on my list is maybe the hottest take I will give in this video, Joe Milton III out of Tennessee. So here's the thing. There's a lot of positives in his game. While he is a bit up there in age at 24 for college prospect that's a bit older, but 6'5", 235, and he's an athlete too. He can move really well. I think the arm is good. You could argue it isn't elite, but it is good, I would say. Obviously, the size is great. He can throw on the run. He can throw off balance. He'll miss some throws, but I would say the accuracy is mostly good. Like, it's more so like he'll have those slight misses, those missing by 6 inches type misses, as opposed to just missing this broadside of a barn, which isn't ideal. There's some issues for him. His throwing motion's a touch too long, for sure. He is an older prospect, as I mentioned, and just has some weird fundamentals with some stuff, like some footwork things are just kind of odd for me, which do bother me when I'm evaluating a prospect. And the deep ball, people will say, well, look how far he threw the ball. And it's sort of like, okay, but if it takes you 10 seconds to get the ball down the field with how much air you're putting under it, that's not really that helpful. You got to be able to push it down the field as well, which maybe he can do, but I haven't really seen that so far. So there's things to like about him. I think he's an underrated prospect, and his issues do feel fixable, which is nice, but he also is an older prospect, so how much more room does he have to grow? Like, that's just a true thing, right? If you're getting drafted at 21, you kind of have 3 extra years in a sense, so that's just kind of how you have to view it. But yeah, it's interesting. He's a very fascinating prospect. I think he might have the highest upside. You could argue he has the highest upside out of the non-top 6 first round guys. But number 1 on my list is going to be Spencer Rattler, who, really interesting stuff with Rattler, I think. So he's someone who, if you remember, there was a point when people thought he might be like a first overall pick a couple years ago. Did not work out that way. He had a bad season, kind of bounced around, ended up in South Carolina, where things went better, for sure. A lot of one-read plays in South Carolina, which I think helped him. And he still did make some poor decisions, but for the most part, I think, showed he can run a simplified offense. Maybe doesn't have the biggest of arms either. That's kind of the other knock you would, maybe throw at him, but still, I don't know. I think there's good traits in him. He can move well. He throws on the run well. He can run an offense that's, I think isn't the most difficult offense to run, but he can run an offense particularly well. And South Carolina had a ton of pressure. Like, they were consistently giving up pressure, and he handled that very well. On top of it, has the pocket presence. The NFL will not be an issue with that, I don't think. So, still don't know if he's a first rounder to me. He's not. In fact, I don't have any of these. Sometimes you fall in love with one of these other prospects. At least sometimes I do. Not the case really for me here. I still do have the top 6 guys as my top 6, but it's still, I think there's some interesting prospects here. And what's really fun about this video is undoubtedly in 3 years from now, one of these guys is going to be a Pro Bowler, and we'll all going to go back and laugh at me for not evaluating that guy properly, which is part of the fun of this, right? So, yeah, I wanted to kind of give my thoughts on who they were. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from y'all. And, of course, as always, thanks for watching.